is going. But we just have such a wonderful group of people here. The first service went really well. And as you can see, a little bit easier to park out there. And now you got a little elbow room in here as well. But that's only going to last for a few weeks because I'm telling you, people are coming. So be excited about that and the growth of this church. Now, today's the special day. It's Coffee with Jessica. Yes, Coffee with Jessica. Now, I love this girl. I do. She is just a real, we almost might have to change her name to a Nelson because she's so much a part of our family now. But a few years ago, that wasn't the case. And I want you guys to know she has a very special story. She is one of the hardest working members of this church. Not exaggerating, that same couch she's sitting on, she has slept on in the foyer. I will walk in sometimes and she's asleep. And I'm like, Jessica, it's because she's already been here for 2 hours doing things before I even show up. She is one of those that gives me a kick every once in a while because I get busy and I think I'm really busy and I'm doing all these things. I'm writing messages, I'm visiting people, and then I come in and she's like, yep, but you still need to weed eat the front, you know? And it's like, oh, but I'm just so tired. But then she's like, go, because she's doing stuff, so then I feel guilty. You know, so I go. She puts me to work. She's not even my boss. He is, you know? But that's the kind of person she is. And here's the thing about Jessica I want you to know. After you hear her story today, if you'd asked me 5 years ago if I would have heard this story, would I allow my son to be in her care? And I would be like, you're crazy. But when you see the transformation that Christ did in her life, I have no fear ever of letting my son be with her. She's kind of like that second mom, you know. When our boy, when we leave town, we say, Jessica, good, will you take care of our kid? And when you hear the story, you're going to say, how is that possible? And I'm going to tell you, Christ can transform a life. And so today, I just here we go. Are you all ready to welcome Jessica Good today? One of the most loyal people I know. And so I'm not as loyal. And I told you I would keep it really to the script. That's probably not going to happen today. But I'm going to start off with an easy question to get us going. Tell us about your childhood.
So my childhood was probably abnormal to most childhoods. I was more of a caregiver to my mom. My mom is disabled. She has been most of my life. My mom is a very depressed person. She has been on disability as long as I can remember. So she's always been I've always been a caregiver to her more so than she has been to me. And so I remember getting babysitting jobs early in age. So I've worked since I was about 10 years old to help take care of household bills and things like that. And then I started a real job when I was 16 to continue to take care of things like that.
So you had to take control of the household growing up.
Yeah.
And when we were talking about you as a child, you kind of alluded to me that that's where you learned the skill of manipulation.
Yes.
Explain how that is, how that works.
So my mom would manipulate people always, my whole life, I remember that, into giving her money or things that we didn't have. So my dad never was in my life. We left my dad when I was about 6 weeks old. And so when my mom wanted something or needed something, she would manipulate people into giving those things to her.
Which I talked about this in the first service. When you go through life And last week we talked about being blindsided in life, how things can just come along and knock you off your track. And you don't understand what causes it. How did I go from everything going okay, and then one thing happens? And if you remember what I said it's normally a tragic thing in your life, or you're set up with a trial. It's something like I lost my job and I'm desperate for money, or purely you start off with one lie, and then you're like, oh, well, I got to lie again. And the next thing you know, it rolls into something, and now your life is being destroyed. I talked about how you could be blindsided in life. And as a pastor, I've been blindsided in life. No one here is immune to it. Nobody. I don't care if the Savior's mother Mary wasn't immune to it. Okay? Nobody here is. Only Christ was. And so, blindsided in life, it can look pretty bad. And in 2017, my friend Jessica here, she moved into what you could call a gated community. We call that prison. That's the good name for prison, is the gated community. And you got there. Now, kind of share with us how you made that journey.
So in 2014 is when it really started. I found out that my daughter had a mass on the front side of her brain, and we thought that it was cancerous, but then soon found out that it wasn't cancerous. And I'd already told people that it was cancerous, so people were already starting to give us money, and it was too late to tell people that it wasn't cancerous. And so I just kind of stuck with the lie for several years. And
she continued to make a lot of money. And that's the blindsided part, And I'm telling you right now, here's the story that I'm going to share. I used to make a lot of money, all right? And when I looked at it, I thought it was a scoreboard. And every dollar I made more, I felt like I'm a better person. And then I would look around and say, look how much better I am as everybody else because I'm making this money. The scoreboard's getting high. And then what I would do is I'd look around and I'd see people that I worked with in the same industry. And I'd see them catching up to me. What do I need to do to continue to be the highest on the scoreboard? So I used to sell people things, and what I would do is I'd start leaving things out. Like, oh, what I do is so easy, anyone can do it. That's just simply, anyone can do it, and it was very easy for me, but it wasn't for them. I kind of left that part out. What ended up happening is because I believed the scoreboard of life was my bank account. This was before I was a pastor, okay? This was when I was doing things totally different, before the Lord convicted my heart. Imagine you walking through life and you think your daughter has cancer. You tell people, and then it's one of the first times you see people rally around you and love you. And they start giving, and they start helping you. The next thing you know, it's like, what do I tell them? Do I come out and tell them that I was wrong, or that I lied, or that I've already taken some of that money and used it for something? What do you do? Well, Jessica chose to double down and continue moving forward. And here's the deal. Nobody in this room can look at her and say this, shame on you. You can't do it. You just can't do that. I actually, when I first met Jessica, someone walked down the hallway, and I said, who is that? And they go, Jessica Good. And I was like, well, she seems like a good person, last name. I thought I was being funny. Mm-hmm. And then they leaned over and they're like, yeah, but she's the one that went to prison. That's what they said. That was my introduction. But it was not very long after getting to know her that I realized her life had been transformed. Something transformed her life. We can all make these mistakes. And sometimes God will do things to let you see him. And so I'm a big, big fan of prison ministry, and we'll talk a little bit more about that here in a minute. But what happened the day, when you kind of got caught? What happened? How did that go down?
So, the church we were attending at the time, my husband actually worked for the church, and one of the pastors at the church called the police, and he said, something doesn't seem right, but if I'm wrong, I will do everything in my power to fundraise for her, but if I'm right, then she needs to be punished. So they started investigating. And on July 20th, 2016, DHS and the police showed up at my house and took my kids away. And they wouldn't let me call my husband at the time. So I picked up my phone and texted him and said that the kids were taken away. And so he was at work at the time. And they took me to the police department for questioning. And he showed up at the police department just about an hour later, I think. And they wouldn't let us see each other, so I think they questioned him at the time as well. And then I was there, it seemed like probably 5 or 6 hours they questioned me. And then they let me go home that night.
And here's the thing. Her husband didn't know the whole time.
No, he had no idea.
He believed the story. Now imagine being her husband and coming home, and then all of a sudden he's blindsided. He walks in and he's like, wait a minute. My wife is going to jail. They just took my kids. I have no idea what's going on. They're questioning him to see if he knows anything about it. He doesn't. And he's visibly and understandably angry with his wife. Think about it. He'd be a little angry. If I came home and something like that happened to me, I'd be a little angry. But let me tell you something about Jonathan Good. A man who is a picture of Christ and his grace. Even though he was angry, even though she brought shame upon him, and even though she went to prison, Jonathan Good loved her where she was at, took care of her the whole time she was in prison. And I want to talk about prison ministry, but before we get there, hear this. You are supposed to be sentenced to what?
18 years.
18 years. October 2nd, Pastor Wade is coming here. Share with them what Pastor Wade did for you.
He testified on my behalf. And it was reduced to 3 years.
She was sitting on 18 years.
At 85%.
85%. She would have had to have served 85% of that 18 years. But Pastor Wade believed in her. And he went and testified, and he was the last one. And if you guys know anything about how he can speak, he spoke to that courtroom, and when it was over with, they lowered her sentence to 3 years. That was God's grace working in that moment. So one of my favorite parts of this is when you go to prison, and I won't use the bars again. And, they slam the bars, and you got your one toilet in the corner.
You do have one toilet in the corner.
That is true? All right, you get one toilet in the corner. But she said something to me, and I thought, wow, you didn't feel like a prisoner. Tell them what you felt the day the door slammed.
It was the most freedom that I felt ever in my life.
Why did you feel so much freedom?
Because I didn't have to lie to anybody ever in that moment.
That is a big amen. When you're sitting there, Man, so you were there. What? Now I know prison ministry really helped you. Let's talk about that. How did that change your life as you were sitting in this dark world?
So when I was in county jail, Pastor Wade brought me a Bible, and I dove into the New Testament, and I read the New Testament completely in 28 days. And I found in the New Testament, I found my faith growing in the darkest place in my life. And I don't think that in being at home, you don't have all that time when you're at home because you have nothing else to do. I mean, you sit on your rack and do nothing. I mean, you don't have anything.
Rack is the bed. And yard is the prison. I'm learning this as we go.
You don't have anything else to do, so you just sit and do nothing. So, I mean, you choose how you do your time. So.
But once you got into prison, you challenged your bunkmate, correct?
Yeah, I challenged my bunkie to go to VBC, which is Victory Bible College, and she said, "Well, if I apply to go, then you apply to go." And I was like, "I have nothing else to do, so okay, I'll apply to go." And we both got in, and I was like, "Okay, so it's a year-long program, and it's fast-paced, so." We both went, and we both got a degree in theology. And I was like, okay, well, I would have never taken that chance in the real world. I would have never done that.
So was the transformation of your heart sitting in county, reading the Bible or theology, or mix of both?
Probably both.
Mix of both. Let me share with you guys something. This is what I love this. I love this. This is how God works, and we see it in the Bible. If anybody ever walks up to this woman and says something disrespectful to her in any way based on her past, you got to deal with me. And I won't be happy. Here's why. There was this guy who ran around in the New Testament holding the robes of others while they stoned people to death. He persecuted Christians the whole time. He talked so bad about Christians. He called them names. But then he got to meet Jesus in the darkest place. What did God do? Blinded him by his light. And Paul was in darkness, but that's where he found Jesus. And that's the same thing that Jessica did. She had to be in the darkest corner of a cell to find Jesus. And I want to tell everybody here, in your life, no matter what darkness you're in, open up God's Word, light will shine from it. And it will build your faith. But that same man who went around stoning and killing, imagine when he walked down the hallway and someone said, "Who's that?" And they go, "Oh, that's Paul." Well, Paul seems like a good guy. Oh, yeah, but he was the one who persecuted Christians. The same person who said, "Oh, yeah, Jessica seems like a good person." Oh, yeah, she's the one that went to prison. The Apostle Paul became the greatest pastor known in Christian history. God can take anyone, no matter where they are, whatever dark place, he can bring them back to light. And he's done that with Jessica. Why did he do that? Grace. He loved her when she didn't deserve it, just like he did each and every one of us. The same kind of love. So I am proud to call Jessica Good my friend. I am proud that she is a member of our church. And I will say she's one of the most loyal people I have ever met. She's one of the hardest working. And I think it's because God transformed her heart. Is there anything you'd like to say about that? I'm just rambling here. When you were in prison, was there any experience there where you just had an aha moment? You were like, when I get out of here, did you fight for your kid? Like, did you want to get home to your kids? Where you said something about being a prison Christian that I thought was interesting. You said something about being a prison Christian. Some people come in and they do it to. Can you a jailhouse Christian? Is that what it, can you
Well, a
explain
lot of
that?
people go in and they become jailhouse Christians. Like they hit the yard and they go to every church service and they basically are jailhouse Christians. And then they go home and they go back to the same lifestyle and then they go back to prison and then they do the same thing. It's just like a cycle.
But you didn't want that for yourself.
No, I did not want to be a jailhouse Christian.
Think about that. She got out of prison and she started CR. You're one of the leaders at CR, right? Celebrate Recovery.
Yeah, I'm on the team. I'm an ambassador for Celebrate Recovery in the city of Enid.
Yeah, she wants to help other people who get out of prison, who live the same, that face the same trials when they come out. That's what I like about CR. That's what I like about prison ministry. When people, I want prisoners here, by the way. That's our next goal, is to be able to have prisoners come in at one of our 2 services and sit here and hear the truth of God. Because when you get out, even when you're in prison, you're in a dark place. But when you get out of prison, the rest of the world has moved on. And you're kind of alone. And you need to be grounded. You need to have a place to be grounded. And that's what I love about these programs. Now, you saw God moving in this process. We all see the change in your life when you came home. It's what's crazy that Jonathan, I don't think I'm exaggerating. I think if 100 men went through that, what he went through, 99 would have left their wife. 80 of them probably would have left the first day and never come back.
Well, he did leave on day 6.
But he came back. Yeah. Because he's a man of grace. It's okay to feel angry. It really is.
Yeah.
But to just come back and be like, I'm still going to love her where she is. Reminder, Christ did that for every one of us.
Yeah.
He loved us exactly where we were. Doesn't matter if you're a pastor or a prostitute. He doesn't show any partiality. If you're a drug addict or a doctor, no partiality. He will love you exactly where you are, and he will bring you to him. And when he does, that's when he starts to transform your heart. So I got 2 questions, because I know they don't want to be here all day listening to me. You went to 3 churches. You came here. What is it about this church that you said, this is where I want to be?
It's the people. We feel loved here. Our kids like it here.
You said the word. That's the word that mattered, was love.
Yeah.
And I feel the same thing. When I walked in the door for the first time, I felt love from the people who were here. Let me stress this. You can never love too much. And I would tell you, I'm a man of second chances. I believe in giving people second chances. I actually believe in third chances and fourths, fifths. And what does Jesus say? 77 times 7. That's how many times I'm willing to give someone a chance. Because you continue to love them exactly where they are, and let God do God. Let him change their heart. Don't be concerned about all the things they've done in their past or what they might do. Wait until God grabs their heart and he changes it. Because he can. And there's many stories like that in this church. So I'm glad that you're here. I am proud that she is a member of our church. I will never shy away from that. And I'm proud that you're a part of our family. And you're such a good friend to my wife and to my son. I can't thank her enough for the example that she has become for others. So my final question. There are people watching online. There could be someone right now who is waiting to be sentenced next week. And they are sitting there going, am I going to go for life, 20 years? Is someone going to come in and do a great closing argument and get me out in 3? Or am I going to get off free? But they're sitting there waiting. There's also someone right now who might be listening who is on their way to go to prison, or they know they're going, or someone who just got out of prison for the first time and they're watching. There are people in this room that have been to prison who know exactly what you're feeling. What do you want to say to them?
First of all, you have to keep the faith. Whether you're going to prison or if you get off tomorrow, if your charges are dropped, keep the faith. Keep chasing God. Because if your charges are dropped, He's been faithful to you. If you go to prison, He's been faithful to you. Because I needed to go to prison to be who I am today. He knew I needed to go to prison. So even if you end up in prison tomorrow, He knew that you needed that.
That's right.
So keep the faith in Him. Keep chasing Him.
That's so true. And I think about it, God will grab you if He needs to, and He will pull you to the darkest of places. And sometimes that is a blessing. So when you look around and you see your family, and sometimes people in your family are getting in trouble, or you see them crumbling under the weight of the world, and you're like, no hope for them. They're going to prison. They've ruined their life. Nope. You keep praying for that person, because in the darkest places, our God will travel, because darkness can't hold out His light. It is impossible. And just like when I was telling you about me, I wanted that scoreboard. I wanted to be the highest of all highs. And I said, Lord, look how great I'm doing. Now I think it's time. I think it's time for me now to start being more like you, now that I've conquered all that I did. And you know what He did? Took an eraser and He wiped out my scoreboard. And He took all of it. And that is when I finally got to see who Christ really was. He had to take Jessica and put her in a dark hole so that she would read His Word, and from that transform her life. I've got story after story about people. And Jasmine, we listened to Coffee with Jasmine, the same thing. She had to go to a dark place to see the light. So when you see people in your life struggling and hurting, don't give up on them, even though they may give up on themselves. You continue to pray for them. You never stop praying. God hears everything. He hears the whisper of your heart. I love the New Testament. Gives you all the answers. Even when you don't know what to pray, the Holy Spirit knows what you're feeling, and He goes and He will pray on your behalf. It's amazing. So let us